9 to 6 p.m. Council of the City of Denison now convenes into regular session. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Danny Broughton from Cottonwood Creek Baptist Church.
Father, we come before you tonight thanking you for our leadership of our city. We thank you for their loyalty, their commitment to our city. We pray that you give them wisdom and discernment as they make decisions about our city, that it becomes a city that's thriving, that helps every member of every part of the city feel part of it as it grows. We thank you for what they do on our behalf. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proclamation today is Ski here.
Yeah.
How's it going, sir?
It's going great, thank you.
All right, very good. Got a proclamation for you here on behalf of the City of Denison. Whereas today's society is finding more citizens involved in motorcycling on the roads of our country and are much more likely to be injured or killed in a crash other than vehicle drivers. And whereas it is important to reduce the number of fatalities and crashes associated with motorcycling by encouraging all operators to participate in rider education programs. And whereas a comprehensive approach to motorcycle safety has helped inform riders and motorists alike on motorcycle safety issues to help reduce motorcycle-related injuries and most of all fatalities. And whereas it is the responsibility of all vehicle drivers to be aware of the motorcyclist regarding them with the same respect as any other vehicle traveling on the highways of this country. And whereas the Texas Motorcycle Rights Association is urging our communities to be aware of the inherent danger involved in operating a motorcycle and give the operator the respect on the road that they deserve. Now therefore I, Jared Johnson, as mayor on behalf of the City of Denison, do hereby proclaim May 2015 as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month in the City of Denison.
Thanks so much. I just want to say a couple real quick words, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what happened over the weekend. That's not typically the motorcycling community that we like to promote, and you know, this is a real tragic event the way it came down. But in a nutshell, that event was supposed to get biker clubs together so that they can get along. It's basically, and it didn't work out that way, and one thing led to the other. So you know, that's really tragic that happened over the weekend. But what I did want to mention today is that motorcycling is making great strides in safety and in reducing fatalities. The most recent numbers that we have from National Highway Safety and Traffic Administration is from 2013. And we always run like a year behind as far as our statistics go. In 2013, motorcycles had reduced their fatalities by 6.4%, more than double of any other category. Passenger vehicles were like 2%, pickup trucks maybe 2%, but all the classifications together did not even equal half of the fatalities that we reduced. Alcohol-related fatalities, motorcycles had the largest number again, 8.3%. No one even came close. If you took all the categories together, added them together, they would not equal the number of fatalities that we reduced. And we like to think that it's because of communities like Denison who take a proactive stance, who want to let the community know to look twice and save a life. Being proactive, putting the word out there, safety and awareness is really important for the motorcycling community. Half of all collisions, all crashes involving motorcycles happen at an intersection. Somebody turned left and didn't see the motorcycle. So if we can just get that word out there, we'll reduce our crashes by half anyway. But thanks so much, council members, mayor, for giving this to us. I'm joined today by American Legion Riders Post 231 out of Pottsboro, and also by members of Texas A-Bait, Texas A-Bait. So we all appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 3A, oath of office.
We always like to get a group picture. Is that still okay?
Yeah, that's great. Let's do
Okay.
it.
They're not very cooperative. Huh?
short people in the back.
And Denison, by the way, did draw the biggest group of our members, so we're real proud of you.
Y'all have a vest the mayor could wear?
You photographers.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jared Johnson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
as a member of the city council
as a member of the city council
for the city of Denison, Texas,
for the city of Denison, Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of the state, so help me God.
and of the state, so help me God. Okay, agenda item 3B, election of the mayor pro tem.
Mayor, I make a nomination of Matt Hanley to Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Have a motion from Councilman Beck, second from Councilmember Gott. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now we have the oath of office for pro tem. Carrie? No? We do not. Do we do that next time? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
So agenda item 3C, discussion on demolitions. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I came to the meeting, Mr. David Howardson said he had his popcorn ready, so I hope not to disappoint. No, we'll be brief.
Hey, if he's picking on you,
Yeah.
just call. We'll give you the ammunition you need to fire back.
Just a brief overview of our demolition activity to date in 2015. Start with a quick process timeline. Staff, code enforcement and building staff identify substandard structures and properties out in the field routinely. And they also receive complaints from neighbors of blighted structures, as well as from time to time receive requests from owners for tear downs of properties. So when a property is identified, it involves an inspection and posting of the property as being unsafe. The next step involves a title search to find the clear property owner or property owners, as the case may be. The next step in the process includes a 60-day notification period. Notice of violation as well as a release letter is sent out to the property owner. The next step for owners who don't choose to release their property for demolition, it goes to the city council for city council review and action. After the city council takes action, the owner has the right to appeal the decision for 30 days. So staff can't take any action or do anything with the property until the 31st day. Next step is utility disconnects, which includes electricity, gas, cable, telephone, and if public works guys are prompt, that would also include city water. So from what I'm told, the biggest hitch in this step of the process is gas disconnections. After utility disconnects are completed, it's ready to be sent to the Public Works Department for demolition. So start to finish with a owner-signed release. The hurry-up offense would be 2.5 to 3.5 months, so there is some delay once properties are identified. If it does go through city council, it's a bit longer, between 5 to 9 months, and that doesn't include any extensions that city council may grant to the property owner. This is a property 110 South Tone that was posted for demolition. Thankfully, the property owner decided to take action and did some significant rehabilitation and painting to the property, which would be the exception, unfortunately, and not the norm, but we're happy to see that progress made. The picture 514 North Houston, just before demolition began, mid-demolition, and then that is our end product with a cleared lot. Year to date, we have the potential for 62 demolitions. 17 have been completed, 21 are ready, and 14 are in the process pending utility disconnections. We will have 5 coming for your approval on the July 20th City Council meeting, and staff anticipates another 5 voluntary owner releases. So that'll put us over 60 should everything proceed as we expect for 2015. Next steps, staff in the field continues to implement and enforce minimum property standards. Again, as a reminder, minimum property standards are not cosmetic. They relate to health and safety and structural integrity. So things like structural soundness, weatherproofing, security, and integrity of roofs. There's a number of structures that we're finding behind buildings, detached garages and sheds and that sort of thing that owners are coming forward and saying they would like removed, so that might be something we look at in the future. Staff is also limited in the fact that there is little in the way we can address properties that are currently occupied. So all these structures are unoccupied to move through the process. There's a number of rental properties that probably are occupied and have some serious deficiencies, and we've talked just at a very high level, kind of brainstorming how we might address that going forward. Many other cities have rental inspection and programs of that nature. And these are some things we'll probably discuss further at the budget retreat later this week. Last but not least, I'd like to recognize the good work of a number of individuals. The program manager for the demolitions program is Robert Cranfield, and code enforcement. Robert and Betty Floyd are actually in Irving tonight at some training, so getting some continuing education in their fields. Our friends in Public Works, Mr. Howerton and Doug Olds, and the demolition crew, Kenny Holly, Connor Meadows, Lane Minshew, and also like to recognize the help of our city attorney. With that, Mayor and Council will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Gabe. Just a couple of questions when I get started here. You know, when we set out to start on this demolition process several years ago, I know we had an AC intern drive the streets and do a drive-by inventory for whatever that was worth. Some of those were rental properties, some of them were not occupied. The number that stands out to me is that we were at 300. I don't know that was an accurate number, but that seems like that was it. Do we know where we are with, since we've started this process 7 or 8 years ago, you know, how, and you may not have it tonight if you do, great, but definitely would be worth discussing at the retreat. You know, how many have we taken off or taken down, and then how many are getting put back on? Are we really making a net gain on the problem?
I have, and don't hold me to it this evening, but I have kind of round numbers. Within the past 2 years, there's been significantly more activity as far as demolition. So 2014, we're about 45. 2015, we're looking at least 52, but probably more like 60. Previously, there was 35 to 40 a year. So in the past half dozen years, we're going to be over 200
And so if I'm understanding your slides right, you know, you get through this year and maybe into next year, and then you run out of inventory at the current. I mean, obviously there'll be a few more put on, but not near at the
Yes, sir.
60 years.
I-
That's when you start looking at the rental opportunities or.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think staff identifies 1 to 2 properties a week in the field pretty routinely, but we're kind of getting to a situation where, you know, a lot of the blighted homes have been removed, and a lot of the unoccupied homes are in the stages or close to it, so we made some progress.
And then I know we've had a lot of staffing changes, and I know that there were several, you know, typically the policy of the council's been, if someone comes to the council and asks for an extension, we give 10 days to pull the permit, 6 months to complete the work. Doesn't seem like we've had very many of those come back to the council, so is that because the work's being done and completed, or with the staff changes, just want to make sure that someone's continuing to follow up on those properties?
Right, yeah, spoke with Robert to that point, and about 10% of properties that are given extensions do make good on those repairs, and they bring them up to our minimum property standards, but the majority, unfortunately, don't make improvements.
And then they don't come back to the council, it just goes straight to
Yeah,
demolition?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Couple questions. The appeal process, once we make a motion to have the property demolished, what is the appeal process? I know you referenced it, but what is the appeal process?
I believe that goes through the district court. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on what the owner of the property decides to do. If they don't agree with your decision, then they can file with the district court to make sure that your decision was based on the reasonableness standard. We had an appeal with, what was it, 715 Sears? So it's that same kind of process.
Okay. All right. So their appeal process is not internal, it would be an external
Yes,
appeal
sir.
process. Okay. And then the other question on minimum property standards. If we are, because I thought part of the minimum property standards was paint. And are we putting that under the guise of weatherproofing and because I thought we were requiring some folks, if we had issues with paint, like, you know, like a home needing paint. So are we categorizing that under, I thought I heard you say it was only under health and safety, or?
Yeah, I think more cosmetic issues, we certainly wouldn't want to move through the process and probably take a code enforcement kind of route as opposed to looking toward a demolition.
Okay.
In demolition, we're looking at a structural problem.
No, I know that.
Safety,
No,
public nuisance.
right, but when we're talking about minimum property standards, those do not include cosmetics, or they do include cosmetics? I guess it not.
They do.
Okay, all right.
Because the
I
minimum
just thought I
property
heard-
standards program really is not about demolition, it's preventing neighborhoods from getting to the point that.
No, I understood. I thought I heard Gabe say that minimum property standards could only be health and safety, so I was just clarifying that the cosmetics are part of minimum property standards. Okay, thank you.
There's one other thing thought of I want to mention, that there are a number of properties that go through the process and they stop due to a change in ownership, or you know, there's a number of chances for issues to be remedied along the way. So staff is continually identifying property. Unfortunately, we're limited by process and factors we can't control to how many go to demolition.
We need to probably review that again, because the minimum property standards, we had some funds at one time that we were getting from some different deals, and we were doing 50-50, some of it to demo, some of it to the minimum property. And what we did on the minimum property, we've had it go into different zones in the city.
That's correct.
The last zone that we've been on has been that kind of northern, I think just northern, I wouldn't call it, almost northeast. It was, originally it was northwest, and now we've gone to north. And I don't know where we're at with that. So with the retreat, we probably need to follow up on that to refine with the staff changes and everything, where we're at with that, and how that we're still, the vision the council had at that time is still where we're wanted to be at.
Yeah, it's my understanding there was a neighborhood approach at some time or. as
Well,
you mentioned.
it was extremely successful. Phase one and
Yes.
phase two were, I don't think we've adopted a phase three, have we? Yeah, no, so phase one was, over Imperial Heights. Phase two was the area just north of Morton,
Right.
Juanita,
Yes,
Mockingbird
that's correct.
area. Yeah, so.
As the mayor alluded to earlier, we brought this back in-house a couple of years ago, and is this proving to be a cost-effective solution for us? Is this a cost reduction for us, the way we're doing these?
In-house demolitions?
Yes.
And mowing, the cost break-even point was 37 houses, and we didn't get our equipment till end of January last year. We still accomplished 45. And this year, we see no problem with getting at least 45 and into the 50s, which will be to the good. And unfortunately, we are running short on inventory, but we feel like we're trying to do them as best we can in groups and not just singles. Right now, we're better than the break-even point, and the mowing, the lots are, with this last two growing seasons last year and what we're seeing for this year, that's our biggest challenge.
And David, on the cost analysis that you just mentioned with the break-even point, that was on the demolition side, but you didn't take into consideration the mowing side, right? Paying the contracted mower versus.
Yeah, we did a unit cost. I showed Judd that recently. We had some outliers on the data, but for now, we're, for the costs that are considered, we're doing better than the amount that was annually being paid to outside mowing contractors.
So we're doing better on both sides of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Council, one other thing on the rental properties, I know that Gabe's mentioned, that to me is our next, as far as minimum property standards go, I think we have to address that. Last time when we did I can't remember if it was a census or we got a report, we had a significantly higher number of rental as a percentage of our stock in our community. We have a very high percentage that's rental as compared to other communities. And, you know, I think we really need to take a strong look at that, because we do, I certainly don't know this, but a number of these houses that we end up demolishing, I'm wondering, you can kind of see the pattern of homes that get rented with no upkeep, and then when they literally cannot be re-rented, you know, that's a lot of times that's when we end up having to demolish them. And so, if we've got a situation like that where, you know, that's a cost of doing business that a property owner who's using it as investment property needs to be reinvesting into that home rather than just using it up until we end up demolishing it. So I really want council that we really take a strong look at that and figuring that issue out for our community.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thanks, Richard.
If I could just hold council real quick, we were going to touch on some of these topics at the retreat on Friday, and I'm hearing some more interest. Should we try to expand on the rental property discussion a little bit and minimum property
Yeah,
standards?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
if you can get it together by Friday, that's, you know, maybe even, I don't think you'll have necessarily a recommendation by Friday because
Sure.
it's that complicated with some of the approaches that maybe other cities have used. Sure.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to look at, because I know we had a report that showed, and we had a significant percentage of our properties
I
were.
thought we were pretty much about on. I thought it was in the 30s and some other cities were.
No, we were exceeding.
No, we were exceeding. Do you remember this, Ken?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some data. I'll get with you.
Yeah,
but
I think the last census was 60-40, 60% owner occupied, 40% renter occupied.
Okay, that could be it.
We're about
If I remember
10%.
that.
10%.
Anyway, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
I'm gonna skip 3D and go straight to the public hearing so that Mr. Fulton can leave if that's so his desire here. So we're gonna go to 5A, public hearing on 1012 Martin Luther King. Gabe?
Yes, sir. Request for rezoning. I'd like to apologize. Maybe staff made an error. Express our regrets to the applicant. The zoning was previously residential, converted to a medical office use as a local retail, and the applicant has requested a change back to residential. Went through P&Z with no problems, there were no disapprovals, and happy to answer any other questions you may have.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this agenda item? Mr. Fulton, come on forward. Good to see you again.
Hello, Mayor.
Name and address, please, for the record.
I live in the adjoining property at 1000 MLK. My name is Martin Fulton. And I purchased the property 2 years ago, and it had, both properties had been used for commercial, but with the hospital moving to the new location, I felt that it was a good time to take occupancy of the 1000 location. And now I'm interested in fixing up 1012, and I don't have any interest in a commercial activity there, so I'm applying for residential use. And the utilities are a little cheaper as a residence.
Question for Mr. Fulton? All right. Anyone else here wishing to speak to this item? There being none, the public hearing is closed. I'll have a motion to approve.
Second.
That motion from Councilman Hanley, second from Councilman Beck. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Okay, we'll go back to agenda item 3D, Atmos City Steering Committee. Ms. Morris?
Thank you, Mayor. You're going to tell me how to operate it. I'll just click.
Yes.
Oh.
Ooh, tell me what to click, somebody. What can you click to make it go? Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, Mayor and Council, we're gonna have a discussion on the Atmos settlement agreement. I want to give you a little bit of background on how we got to this point. First of all, the City of Denison is a member of the Atmos Cities Steering Committee. There are 168 cities that are a member of this group, and what the group does is negotiate settlements when Atmos seeks rate increases. Then this group of cities bands together to do the research to determine if the rate request is fair and reasonable, what would be a fair and reasonable rate request, and negotiate settlement. It makes it affordable for cities the size of Denison to have a voice in the rate-making process. A few facts about natural gas. Natural gas utility in Texas is a monopoly. There is no competition. The only entity that the City of Denison and its residents receive gas from is Atmos Mid-Tex, or the Mid-Tex division of Atmos Energy. Cities have original jurisdiction to regulate gas rates in the state of Texas. What that means is when Atmos wants a rate increase, they have to come to the city first and seek approval from the city council. If the city council doesn't approve a rate increase, then Atmos has the right to appeal the city's denial to the Texas Railroad Commission. The next slide just shows you what Atmos Mid-Tex looks like. You see kind of two large yellow blobs. The largest of those yellow blobs inside the state of Texas is the Atmos Mid-Tex division. The other yellow blob is the Atmos West Tex division. I just kind of wanted to show you what the size of this, the division we're in, what that size looks like. During the 1980s and 1990s, the gas utility industry, there were very few rate cases, very few major rate cases. It was relatively stable. But things began to change in the late 90s. So in 2003, the legislature tried to address rate making with a new program called the Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program, and it was meant to save consumers money by making the regulatory process more efficient. The goal of the program was to encourage utilities to invest in safety and reliability. New pipelines, safer, better for all consumers. And what GRIP did was allow companies like Atmos to immediately recover on their capital investment without having to file a general rate case. A general rate case is an extremely expensive proposition. So, and the costs of those rate cases are passed on to ratepayers. So, if we can avoid a general rate case, it's better for the industry, it's better for the ratepayer. So that was one of the purposes of the GRIP program. However, the GRIP program had some limitations. Number one, under GRIP, because we're only talking about capital investments, then operations and maintenance expenditures and revenues are not considered. So there is it's a formula-driven rate mechanism. So cities don't get any review of it. Basically, it allows the industry to bypass the city's rate regulatory authority, and they can increase rates annually based on the GRIP process. So since the cities were removed from the rate-making process, the cities decided to work out an agreement with Atmos, the cities in the Atmos Mid-Tex division, for a new tariff process called the rate review mechanism. And what that is a very condensed review, similar to a general rate case, where the Atmos Steering Committee hires consultants to review expenditures, to review revenues, to review capital, and determine if it's a mini general rate case is the best way I know to describe it. And so the consultants come back to the Atmos Steering Committee with what they believe would be a reasonable rate request, and then the cities and Atmos negotiate for a settlement. And that process has been very successful. In fact, that process started in 2007, and the cities and Atmos were able to avoid rate cases until 2014. I talked through 2 slides. Sorry. So in 2014, Atmos sought a $45.7 million system-wide rate increase, of which $37 million was attributable to Atmos Steering Committee cities. You know when I showed you the big blob, yellow blob? Well, 168 of us are in that blob. The rest of the cities in the blob benefit from the work done by the Atmos Steering Committee cities, but are not a member of the city. So that's why when I talk about the $37 million being attributed to Atmos Steering Committee cities, I'm talking about the 168 of us that are a part of this entity. It's interesting to note that Dallas is not a member. Fort Worth, Arlington, Irving, other cities are, but Dallas several years ago decided that they could negotiate better with Atmos without the other cities, and so they have their completely separate rate-making process. So, Atmos Steering Committee consultants reviewed the additional revenues, reviewed the request, and under GRIP, and we're talking about the 2014 request right now, where Atmos requested $45.7 million. The steering committee, the consultants for the steering committee reviewed that request and said, okay, if this was a GRIP filing, Atmos would be eligible for $31.5 million. But if this was under the RRM process, which is what that 2014 case was filed under, Atmos would really only be eligible for $19 million, as opposed to the 45.7 that they asked for. So back in 2014, it was the steering committee's recommendation that cities disapprove the rate filing and let Atmos appeal to the Railroad Commission, and that's what happened. So when Atmos appealed to the Railroad Commission, they reduced their initial request from 45.7 to $43.8 million. That's what they were seeking in their 2014 filing. Now, even though cities denied the rate increase in 2014, in June of 2014, Atmos was allowed to go ahead and implement that increase. Then, if the railroad, if the Railroad Commission determined that the rate increase was too large, Atmos would have been required to refund money to ratepayers. So, in June of 2014, ratepayers saw an increase of $2.02 per month on their base rate charge on their gas bill. So, base rate went from and I'm talking about the average residential customer. I'm not talking about industrial or commercial. So the base rate went from $17.70 a month to $18.22 a month, almost a 10% increase in the base rate bill. So the appeal was filed. Normally you get a decision from the Railroad Commission sometime in the fall, certainly before the first of the year. But on February 27th of this year, we still didn't have a decision on the 2014 rate case, and Atmos filed another rate request increase with the city. So another RRM process while 2014 is still pending. In the new filing, Atmos was seeking $28.7 million in increased revenue. Of that, $24 million applies to the 168 cities that are a member of the steering committee. On April 28th, the Railroad Commission came out with a proposed decision, and that proposed decision was very bad for consumers, very bad for ratepayers. Of that 43, let me go back and make sure I get the number right, 43.8 million that Atmos was seeking in their appeal, the Railroad Commission was giving them 43 million of it. Now remember that Atmos Steering Committee consultants said about 21 million was the right number. And GRIP would have only given the company 38 million. So this is 10 million more than any model for a rate out there. So obviously, in the opinion of the steering committee, this is bad for our consumers and for our ratepayers. However, in the process, Atmos and the steering committee discussed settlement. As part of that settlement, the settlement, we would settle both the 2014 rate case and the 2015 rate case. And I think I'm still talking through slides. Yeah. So, in an effort to avoid the bad consequences of the proposed decision from the Railroad Commission, we have this proposal that the steering committee, of which we're a part of, recommends approval. Under the proposal, Atmos would receive slightly less than $22 million for their Atmos Midtex division. That increase amounts to about $1.14 per residential customer, or a 1.59% increase. When added to the 2014 filing, Atmos will receive annual revenues of $65.7 million, or an increase of $65.7 million. It all comes down to about $1.9 billion in revenue for Atmos Energy. And the new rate will go into effect June the 1st, 2015. The token reduction that the Railroad Commission gave ratepayers of about $860,000 is accounted for in the settlement, and the settlement would allow the RRM process to continue. I know we've talked about RRM and GRIP, and most of the time, GRIP is a statutory program. That's put in the utility code, so most of the time, RRM results in a lower increase for your ratepayers, but still a fair return for the industry over the GRIP program. So having the RRM mechanism in place is good for our ratepayers, and part of this settlement says that the RRM process will continue until cities decide it's no longer in their best interest. In previous settlements, the RRM process would only be authorized for a certain number of years. I think the first time it was 4 years, which got to 2012, and in 2012 there was a 5-year process, so this would allow that process to continue until by ordinance cities say this is no longer in our best interest. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's an ordinance that was in your agenda package included, which would approve the proposed settlement, and included with that ordinance there were attachments with a ton of technical information that I'll just tell you I can't explain to you, but Terry might be able to help me out. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Questions from council?
Courtney, just a quick question. Early in your presentation, you mentioned an increase of, I think it was $2.22, and that reflected a 10% increase. But then under the settlement, it's $1.14, but that only equals a 1.59. I'm not following that math.
Because they are the original.
For a year.
The first one was for 2014. In 2014, they were seeking a $43.8 million increase.
Right, and that reflected a $2.22 increase to the consumer.
To the consumer,
And that's
yes.
a 10% increase.
Yes.
Okay, but then we agreed to a $1.14 increase.
The $2.20 has already gone into effect.
Right.
So in addition to the $2.20-something cent increase from last year, there's going to be another approximately 50-cent increase, I believe.
Okay.
Let me see. Flip through my slides here.
What's the denominator on that?
I'm sorry?
What's the denominator on that equation? At
Do
$1.14?
you understand what I'm, do you understand?
Yeah,
what I'm
I just got the same question.
Okay, because 222 is 10%, $1.14 should be roughly 5.
The denominator is the amount requested.
That's what I'm asking. What is that number to equate to 1.59%?
28.762 million, or 20, I believe it's 24 million, because that's what affects, or no, it's gonna be the system-wide number, so it's gonna be 28.762 million, which is what they requested.
What was the $1.14 equals what percent increase?
1.59.
1.59,
Because in the
increase in your,
In your bill.
So that,
But-
that percentage is the base rate. So the first year when it went up about $2, that increased what he's saying, the
10%.
denominator. So when the next year, when you only do it $1, that's why it's less than 10%.
But that's not, but if you increase the base rate $2.22 and that increases to 10%,
Right.
then next year you increase it by $1.14, that's not gonna be a 1%, 1.59% increase. That's what I'm asking.
That's why we're having problems.
Yeah.
okay. I will review this technical information, because those numbers were provided by our consultants. So I'll go through this and I'll have a better answer for you on what those percentages mean
Because
at the next meeting.
For me, I'm mostly concerned what it means, just from the bill standpoint for our consumers. You know, that's what I'm mainly concerned with is.
From the bill standpoint, not talking about percentages of increases, the number in here is a good, hard number. In 2014, the bill went from $17.70 to $18.22. So that was a $2.02 increase. The increase for the 2015, the increase sought for 2015, and the settlement number would be $1.14. The base rate for consumers The consumer base rate will increase to $18.60.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to flush that out.
Yes,
That is-
so it's going from $18.22, which was implemented in June of 14, even though
Right.
the final decision wasn't made on it. So it's going up another, what, 48 cents? 18.60 to 18.22.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out where that $1.14 comes in, so, you understand?
I think it's the total settlement of the 2 years, but I'll verify that.
The first time in 2014, they did not change the consumption rate, did they?
Yes.
They did change the consumption rate, or they're changing the
It's
consumption rate?
changing again. And now, when we talk about consumption rate, that's not, the fuel charge doesn't change. That's a market-driven number. I mean, it changes, but it's market-driven. This consumption is to capture costs that are not captured anywhere else in the rate base. But it is charged on the cubic foot. It is calculated on the cubic foot.
All right, cool.
And we've got to pass this by June 1st, right?
By June the 1st.
The rate is $1.14, that's firm. Terry, do you have anything to add?
We may need to investigate that charge right there. Instead of the $1.14, I think with the reduction in what I've got here, it's 97 cents increase for a residential customer. But we'll look at that and see if that's all right with you.
Okay, and I think these numbers were pulled from the settlement document itself.
Okay, these are the ones that I've got, and it just has an average bill comparison.
Okay,
You should have gotten this in your packet, but I'll make sure you get a copy.
okay.
Do you need this item tabled?
I'm sorry.
Do we want to table this item?
I don't think we need to table it because it's just a matter of the total settlement number it has already been determined, and it's a matter of how we explain what that's going to equate to on the bill for consumers. But the dollar figure has been agreed upon by the consultants, and it's a matter of, or by the steering committee and Atmos, and so it's a matter of what does that number look like on the individual bill, which will be different for residential, commercial, industrial, transportation. They'll all have a different number. And I believe those numbers are attached. Yes, on the attachments, attachment A. So we may be able to clarify that right now. Commercial sales, industrial, residential. The customer charge per bill is going to be $18.60. The rider CEE charge, and I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what that surcharge is 2 cents per month. And then the commodity charge is .09931.
All right, I'll make the, we have to have passed by
June the
so
1st.
we're not gonna have another.
That's our last one.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve. I wish we had a little bit better numbers on the cost to the consumer, because I'm a little bit fuzzy on that, but I'll make a motion to approve so we stay compliant.
Before you go any further, in the staff report that's in the agenda, on, let's see. Okay, it's at the top of page 8. The ordinance and settlement tariffs approve rates that will increase the company's revenue by $65.7 million for the mid-tex rate division, effective for bills rendered on or after June 1, 2015. The monthly residential customer charge will be $18.60. The consumption charge will change from .08819 per cubic foot to .09931 per cubic foot. The monthly bill impact for typical residential customer consuming 60 cubic feet will increase $1.14, about 1.59 increase in the base bill. The typical commercial bill commercial customer will see an increase of $2.69 or 0.96%. And these are the numbers that came from the consultant.
All right, well,
It's still, it doesn't clarify.
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve those so we can get our.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Hanley, second from Councilman Raleigh, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. And again, in summary, we're forced to do this. Terry, thank you for being here. We know that you're not the.
May I address the council for just a second?
Yeah, we beat this up pretty good tonight, so if you don't want to.
I was sitting back in the back if you
I would encourage
noticed.
you to go quick.
Mayor, members of the council, Terry Tondo with Atmos Energy. I want to say thank you. I appreciate your patience in dealing with this. I wish it would have been a better number for our consumers. But what we do need to realize that Atmos Energy is looking at building a safe system that is already safe, but we are building a safer, more reliable system. Over the past 5 years, we have spent over $1 billion in fortifying our system and making it a lot safer system. Last year, that investment went to $277 million that we invested in our Mid-Tex division right here, not only in our distribution system, but also in our pipeline system. And that, I know that's still not a good figure for our consumers to swallow, but it is what it is. And we are out here, we believe in our system, we believe in our customers, we believe in our communities. And that's what we're after right now, is safe, reliability, and of course, my job is working with the communities, and hopefully we'll go away feeling a little bit better tonight than what we do, I think. But also, I would like to say, ma'am, I've got 31 more communities that I need to go to. What are you doing tomorrow evening? And then probably Thursday, and then I start real big next week.
Terry, thank you. And again, we don't disagree with the infrastructure increases that Atmos has made that improve safety throughout our region. We think that's important and we're supportive. What we disagree with is the rate that they feel like needs to be passed on to the consumer to get that back. That's where the rate filing case is.
Absolutely.
And our consultants, along with another 168 cities, through their independent research, has found that it's more than it should be. So the real message to all the consumers throughout the state is to make sure that we get the right people on the Railroad Commission that will fairly and adequately hear these cases. Because unfortunately, it's a Railroad Commission that has nothing to do with railroads and everything to do with oil and gas, and the average educated voter doesn't know that. And so that's not your issue. We appreciate you being involved in the local community, but it is a statewide issue. But now, the one issue that you can help us with, as Gabe mentioned earlier, going to counselor, tell me if I'm going to be in trouble, but you said our disconnects on the demolitions take longer.
I've got my car down.
I have a feeling that's going to be fixed tomorrow.
I mean, we'll certainly address it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Courtney.
This is it here. Thank you.
Agenda item 4, consent agenda.
Mayor, move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion from Councilman Beck, second from Councilman Hanley, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Council will now go into executive session pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss contemplated litigation with our city attorney, and also to discuss assignment of duties for the city manager during the interim period as allowed through Section 551.074. The time is 6:55.